The attempt, no tax on Social Security benefits. The actual result, an enhanced senior deduction, albeit temporary, for anyone that qualifies age 65 and older. This creates a huge question for retirees that are strategically approaching their retirement income and tax planning. What do I do now? Do I take the deduction or do Roth conversions? Can I do both? If you're familiar with the channel, you know we're going to explore just that in this video, and we'll take a look through some illustrations. If you're not familiar with the channel, my name is Curtis Crossland of Suttle Crossland Wealth Advisors. And my mission here is to discuss financial topics and ultimately help people build more tax-efficient retirements. So let's get into it. Signed into law on July 4th of 2025, the Big Beautiful Act carried with it several new provisions. This included the enhanced senior deduction, which looks like a form of compromise from the original goal of no tax on Social Security. This new enhanced deduction is effective from 2025 through 2028 to individuals who are 65 and older. And this deduction is actually in addition to current deductions available to seniors already under the existing law. It allows you to claim an additional $6,000 per person, which then means a married filing joint couple that qualifies could receive a total of $12,000 from this additional deduction on top of their current deductions. As we see from the IRS's website, to qualify for the additional deduction, a taxpayer must attain age 65 on or before the last day of the taxable year. And the deduction is available for both itemizing and non-itemizing taxpayers. But here's the really interesting part. You don't have to be taking Social Security to get this deduction. You get it simply by being 65 or older by the end of the year and qualifying. So to those retirees that are not yet taking Social Security, this presents a huge gift, but also a giant quandary. Do I take the whole deduction or do I push forward with Roth conversions into the phase out knowing I might lose some or all of the deduction? Let's explore some illustrations to shed some light on the impacts of this decision. So to illustrate this conundrum, we're going to look at an example here in Wright Capital using a couple age 65 that retired last year. We got Joe and we got Jane. And we're going to first look at the strategic big picture view. Then we'll switch and we'll look at an illustration of their potential tax impact just for this year. So stick around. Some of these numbers are really going to surprise you. So just some real quick assumptions. Both are age 65. Both are going to have a planning horizon of age 90. So both the Joe and Jane are retired. They retired last year. Their plan is to spend $8,000 a month, and they do have a couple other goals in mind related to vacation budget, charitable gifting, etc. There is approximately $1.9 million in terms of investable asset, with about $1.67 of that being specifically in IRA accounts, and then just a little bit under $250,000 in a joint taxable brokerage. And then we can see here a little over $50,000 in the bank account. Current portfolio for them, roughly a 60-40. Pretty globally diversified, trying to stay in broader markets. Back on their income, we can see that they have no pensions, they have no rents or royalties. They're just living off of their investments until the Social Security kicks in. And at least as of now, they're both delaying until age 67, but are leaning towards pushing to 70 since health is good for both. We can see a benefit amount here of $3,080 for Joe. And then on Jane, we're looking at a monthly benefit amount, $1,917. Now, the obvious goal for them is to make it through retirement and not run out of money. And we can see that their Monte Carlo actually shows that they have a very high probability of being able to do that. And we do see that their assets do continue to grow over the years. Their median terminal balance here around age 90, roughly $4 million. So they're not in any real danger when it comes to just their general financial situation. But the really big goal for them is to reduce lifetime taxes. And then if they can, leave a tax advantage inheritance to their kids and their grandkids. So now all of a sudden, as you might imagine, they care a lot more about deductions, things that are going on with the taxes now. But they're also focused on, well, hey, what's going to happen with the taxes as time goes on? What is that big picture, that 30,000 foot view say for the rest of our lives? So right to the good stuff. When we take a look at the breakdown of their federal income tax bracket currently, we can see that they have a large number of years where they'll be projected to be in the 22% bracket. And note that this does include the updates from the Big Beautiful Bill, basically showing that the marginal brackets, at least for now, are permanent. Now, the big thing that we originally wanted to look at was how does that affect their decision as it relates to their goal of trying to reduce their lifetime taxes? And if we take an initial look at their situation and we look at their projected 1040 for 2025, we do see that this is a couple that is qualified to get or both get that enhanced deduction. And while the bottom of this may be cut off, it's projecting or showing a total tax liability of $0 for the year. And this is if they do no conversion at all. So then the big question becomes, okay, well, what is the long-term strategy? Are we trying to do a little bit of conversion, a lot of conversion? Do we want to try to get all of our accounts from pre-tax to post-tax? Something to keep in mind with the deduction like this as well is that it might help you to reduce your taxable income to a point where you effectively have no tax liability. So at least for the next few years, retirees like Joe and Jane are going to have to make a tough decision. Do I enjoy this deduction and try to have no tax liability if possible for the next few years, or do I want to use this deduction to some degree in order to be able to maybe further do Roth conversion, or do I just completely ignore this deduction and stay with the strategy that might have me pushing my adjusted gross income to much higher levels? Well, for every individual, every couple, they have to determine what is going to be right for them on the basis of what their projections show, what their lifetime taxes might line up to be. Everyone's going to have to approach this with a degree of conviction if they decide to do that. But at least for the sake of looking at their big picture or strategic view in Wright Capital, I think we're going to care a little bit more about the entire picture. So knowing that they could still be eligible for something like the enhanced senior deduction, is that something that is going to take away from their ability or from the projections on something like Roth conversions? Well, let's take a look. So at least according to Wright Capital, if they want to try to quote unquote maximize their tax adjusted ending asset balance, project to have that highest tax adjusted ending balance at the end of their lives, what level of Roth conversion strategy would they consider? Well, at least according to the solver, it would be saying convert, but up to the point where you do not trip over IRMA or trip over that threshold at which your Medicare premiums would start to get an additional surtax. So what's interesting about that, as we saw within the rule itself, the phase out on the enhanced deduction begins when your adjusted gross income is $150,000 or more for a married filing joint couple. So if we actually come over here and if we say that we want to convert but not have anything up to that initial IRMA bracket, and we saw that you can look at this within a number of different brackets, but if we held ourselves within that no IRMA bracket, what we do see is that there is a projection of more tax adjusted ending asset balance. We do see a lower or less in total lifetime taxes paid, and we do see that there would be less withdrawals from tax deferred accounts just by virtue of having less or lower required minimum distributions as time goes on. Now, something to note with that IRMA cliff is at least in 2025, the IRMA cliff is $212,000, meaning if your adjusted gross income looking back 2 years, because that's how IRMA works, really below the $212,000 figure, there is no additional surtax. The issue is going to be, we don't know exactly what those numbers may scale to or get indexed to over time. That's going to be decision year by year, but there is that 2-year look back. But if Joe and Jane were to use that as a basis for trying to understand, okay, what could I convert now? Well, then they would be trying to target an adjusted gross income level that would take them past that initial phase out for the enhanced deduction. So if we actually look at the detail and we come over and we see, okay, we're going to convert dollars here out of the IRA over to the Roth IRA, but try to keep that adjusted gross income number at or below the thresholds or the cutoff points, we can see that it is, again, pushing past that $150,000 initial phase out, but keeping them under any premium surtax for Medicare. So in this instance, Joe and Jane have to decide, do I want to give away some of that enhanced deduction? The phase out for the deduction ends at $250,000. So they would get some of the deduction, but they would not get the entire deduction. Now, something Joe and Jane could opt to do is they could opt to convert simply a lesser amount to try to force their modified adjusted gross income to stay at, let's say, $150,000 or less, and then that would be a going concern every year. But if they were to do that and favor, let's say, taking that enhanced over the next few years, that would slow down or it would change the amount that they would be able to convert. That would then mean they'd have to convert more in later years and may not necessarily equate to the best or lowest lifetime tax reduction. So they have a real decision to make as far as, well, should we continue and try to go up to that no IRMA limit? Should we, have our adjusted gross income be in the phase out? Or maybe they have other life events or decisions that maybe get into the way that say, well, no, maybe we're better off trying to convert quicker. If there's a health concern or an issue that might have them looking at more unfavorable tax rates. If one of them was to predecease, they may decide, well, we just need to be even more aggressive. All of that is going to be situational to them, but I'd be curious to know what direction folks are going to lean when it comes to this. I think like a lot of the other decisions that you have to make, it's always a give and a take when it comes to the tax planning in this. What is it that you value more that you would decide to do? Is it the lowest tax bill you can possibly have this year? And so great, I'll take the whole deduction and I'll just push off anything that would increase taxes until I have to. Or do you look out 30 years? Do you look out 20 years or however many years you think you have and say, is there something that I could be doing this year, even if I have to give away a particular benefit, to perhaps get a better return of value from an after-tax standpoint well off into the future? And I've done other videos on this as well. You can check those out where we actually look at, okay, well, now that you're dead, what happens to your inheritance? And so there can be a far-reaching implication to the decisions that you're going to make when it comes to, do I convert or not? Do I go after some of these deductions as if they are low-hanging fruit? Does that stop or prevent me from doing anything that's in my longer term purview when it comes to my retirement and tax planning? So at least for Joe and Jane coming back here in their situation, if they decide that they want to try to pursue one of those big goals, which is to have less total lifetime taxes paid, have a more favorable tax adjusted ending balance or ending inheritance for their kids and grandkids, well, this is something that they're going to have to decide. So let's shift gears and we'll take just a quick look at an illustration for just 2025. In one instance, we'll look at no conversion. We'll look at some conversion up to that no IRMA threshold, or so we don't go over that current year AGI limit of $212,000 from a joint. And then we'll take a look at, well, what happens if you were to convert in 2025 up to the top of that 22% marginal bracket. So I've jumped us over here to Plan. This is a platform that's going to allow us to take a look at the side-by-side on the projections of these three scenarios. 2025 for Joe and Jane when they have no conversion. 2025 if they were to convert but stay up to that IRMA limit of $212,000. And then what if they were to just simply convert up to the top of the 22 marginal bracket? And we'll be able to tell the difference when we look at their projected federal liability. Now, Plan as well also accounts for the Big Beautiful Act changes, and that will be a part of what we include here in our view. Now, initially, I copied the numbers over from Right Capital and things like taxable interest, our total dividends, some of the long-term capital gains that we have, and you can see at least so far, side by side, everything is the exact same. We see that total income here, $40,093 across the board. Adjusted gross income, that $40,093 across the board. Standard deduction, here's again where it gets interesting. Standard deduction for them, $34,700, but here's that enhanced deduction right here under total other deduction. So $12,000 is what they get being married filing jointly and both qualifying as an additional deduction. So when we come down here, we can see that based on no conversion, only having that dividend, interest, and gain income that they had from their investment portfolio, we see that the total tax liability in a no conversion scenario works out to $0. And it would put them in a good position where if they had other concerns where they maybe have to take out a little bit extra money at the end of the year, or if they had any other surprises, that they would still be in a very low tax situation given how low their taxable income is. Now, if we were to say that they were going to go ahead and convert up to that IRMA limit, that would basically work to try to bring their adjusted gross income number here up to the $212,000 figure. Well, now we'd have to come up here and we would have to say in the Roth conversion area that we're going to convert $171,907. What that will do is that will make our adjusted gross income right at that threshold of 2025's IRMA number and significantly higher than that initial phase out where the enhanced deduction begins of $150,000. So when we come down here, we still have the same standard deduction that we had under no conversion, but now we can see the impact of that reduced enhanced deduction because the adjusted gross income went over that $150,000 number. We can also see our taxable income numbers quite a bit higher as well. And when we come down and take a look at a projection in terms of those federal taxes, we see a projected value or dollar amount of $25,000 plus. This would have us within the 22% marginal bracket. Our effective tax rate would be right at 14.5%. So other considerations to make other than the obvious increase in the federal tax liability is the fact that if there are any other income surprises, if there is anything else, in terms of gain that would push their modified or their adjusted gross income over that IRMA threshold in future years, that would be an added cost. That would be something that would make this even more expensive. So you might ask the question, well, why would they do that if they can just enjoy a $0 tax year or a $0 tax year for the next few years? Why would they do that? Well, again, it depends on what does the long-term show, what do the projections show, and are they convicted to try to accomplish one of their main goals of trying to reduce lifetime taxes, not just taxes for this year? Now, if we were to look at a conversion up to the top of the 22% marginal bracket, well, what would that look like in comparison? Well, if we jump over here and we take a look at a visual for our range calculation, we can see that as we go up in terms of the amount of income that we're recognizing, we start to hit things like this red area here showing us that capital gains tax will be at 15%. The green shaded area above showing how our enhanced senior deduction is falling off, and we have to think about that as an added cost. And if we move all the way over, we can start to see where net investment income tax also can become an issue. But it's at this point here where we're right about $240,000 where we kind of reach the end where we can no longer convert and stay within the 22% bracket. So if I hop back over here and I go up and I put in $239,000 for our Roth conversion, well, now we can see that our adjusted gross income, almost $280,000, well over the total phase out of that enhanced deduction. Also over that initial cliff, maybe even pushing into the second cliff. We won't know for a couple of years, but that could happen where it could push them even higher than just that initial surtax. They still have their itemized deduction, but now we can see there is no more enhanced senior deduction. That's been eliminated because they've gone past the phase out. Taxable income right about $245,000. But then if we come down here, we can see that the total tax liability to stay and convert all the way up to the tippy top of that 22% bracket. Tax liability federally right about $42,000. Yes, they stay within that marginal bracket. Now their effective rate has gone up just a little bit more to that 17.2. But if they have surprises, if they have more income they end up recognizing, if there are additional dividends, any sort of special distributions, or anything that would increase adjusted gross income, the effect of that next $1,000 on ordinary income, or that effect of that next amount on the capital gain here, will have a pretty large impact on those dollars. When somebody looks at this for themselves, the big questions again are, what are you trying to accomplish on the whole? What does your big picture show? What does it present you in terms of projections and opportunity? Then you have to come and you have to look at it year by year. It's always going to be a going concern. There are some that are going to say, this is too complicated. I don't want to deal with this. I'll do nothing. I will take advantage of things like the enhanced deduction till they're gone. I'll take things as they come. And if I end up paying more in tax and end up leaving a less tax advantage inheritance, so be it. But others, this is something that is going to go through their minds where they want to know, where are those break points? How do I maximize, or how do I try to find, the best solution for my situation now and off into the future? And if I have to make decisions in the present or over the next year or two that might take away from something, such as an enhanced senior deduction, am I convicted and willing to do that? So everybody's answer on this is going to be different, but I would love to know how you view this. If you were in this situation where you had sort of this ABC, you could take no conversion, basically have no tax liability for the year, versus would you be willing to pay some tax, keep yourself, maybe like Joe and Jane here, consider keeping yourself up to that initial IRMA limit, Or are you more pedal to the metal? Well, I want to try to get all of these pre-tax dollars converted. I want to do that before I hit required minimum distribution age maybe. Are you willing to pay or prepay more in that liability? I'd love to know what you would decide to do, what other questions you have when you look at something like this. Leave me a comment. Let me know. What would you pick? A, B, or C here? No conversion, conversion to IRMA limit, or top of 22% or beyond? But at the very least, what I hope this does is it gets you to start thinking about the trade-off in a lot of these decisions. There is no real black and white when it comes to financial planning. Everything is situational. Everything has to be viewed on its own merits. And even then, at the end of the day, folks still have to decide how convicted are they to act on something like a projection or on something they believe might lead towards better net after tax return later. And not every situation is going to show the same outcome. So some of these numbers may end up being very surprising, as we've seen in this example, but they might be even more surprising if you were to look at your own situation. Even though this deduction is only around for 3 years, it's going to create quite the predicament for a lot of retirees. It can be a hard decision to make. Do I take the whole deduction, just some of it, or none of it? It's all going to boil down to what your strategic plan and goals are and how convicted you are to following a longer term approach. I'd love to know what you plan to do, or if you have other questions related to this. Let me know down in the comments what approach you favor, and let me know what other related topics you want me to deep dive. If you have no idea how to navigate any of this for yourself or are considering professional help, be sure to check out our links. And if you got anything out of this video, I'd sure appreciate a subscribe. Once more, I'm Curtis Crossland, and if you want to see how we help folks build a more tax-focused and efficient retirement, be sure to check us out at SuttleCrossland.com and subscribe for future videos.